right, well, welcome everyone. This is the regular meeting of the Local Alcohol and Drug Planning Committee. My name is Eric Geyer. I chair this meeting, and I also am the director of Jackson County Community Justice. We're going to have three separate presentations today. The first one is going to be from Pathfinders. The second one will be from the Oregon Health Authority about 110 implementation. And then the third one will be from Prime Peer through HIV Alliance. So Jordan, I've had a couple meetings with you already. One of my normal icebreakers I ask people is, do you like pizza or tacos? And you chose pickles, and I will start looking at pickles as a comfort food now. So I appreciate that change in my perspective. But I will turn the floor over to you and your team, and I thank you all for joining us.
Great, thank you. So just a little bit about HIV Alliance in case you're not familiar with what we do. We formed as a merger of various services that were providing care to people living with HIV and to trying to prevent HIV infections, hence the name Alliance. I still haven't gotten an accurate count of the staff numbers. I'm pretty sure it's a lot higher than that, but we do have 6 offices in 6 counties, mostly west of the Cascades, a little bit of a foothold in Deschutes County. And so the two things that we do when it is care services for people living with HIV. That's what we do mostly. I guess about a half of our agency is dedicated to doing that. So things like care coordination, making sure that people are getting their labs done, seeing their doctors, and getting their medications that they need in order to be living with HIV. And the other thing that we do is prevention services, which is to prevent the new infections. So that's the other half of what we do. And we're doing that in various counties. And one of the things that we learned as we were doing the prevention services is that a lot of the people who are coming to prevention services, like the needle exchange and stuff, they need help with referrals to substance use and so forth. And then so we actually became a great venue for making referrals. And then we started doing studies and we started doing services connected to the needle exchange. So the substance use services are actually very much a growing part of what we do. So it might seem like it's a departure from HIV care, but it's very much not, because people who are injecting drugs are one of the highest people who are at the highest risk of HIV transmission. So those are our people that we are trying to meet their needs so that they will not contract HIV. And part of that is that we started providing healthcare services under the name of Alliance for Community Wellness. You'll see that logo there, and you'll see that a lot of our staff are carrying that as our name. And let's see, so the services that we're providing in Jackson County right now, we have an office in Medford, and we're moving. I think we're supposed to move in by the end of the month, so that's like in 2 days. We'll see if that actually happens. We do provide HIV care coordination and PrEP coordination. So PrEP is pre-exposure prophylaxis for HIV. It's basically HIV medication that you take on a daily basis. So if you're engaged in sexual acts that are at risk, or if your partner is living with HIV, or for various reasons, you want to make sure that you have some protection against HIV. That is a medication that we can either coordinate you getting connected with a provider who can prescribe that, or we actually have a program that we're piloting in Lane County that we're going to expand to all the different counties, where we're providing a PrEP prescription by telehealth. We also distribute naloxone, which is, an opioid overdose preventing medication or treatment medication. And we have the Prime Peer program in Jackson County, which is up and running now. So one of the things that we learned in working with people living with HIV is that we can't just address their HIV and have them take their medications. They have other physical health needs, they have emotional needs, financial needs. People living with HIV are at very high risk of depression, and then that becomes a problem with the other members of the family, and then that becomes an interpersonal issue. And also, because people who are living with HIV are often people who are who are members of a vulnerable or under resourced population, they tend to have more financial stressors, more interpersonal stressors, which then impact their ability to care for their HIV. So we have learned to think about close coordination and consultation with any medical providers that we work with, but not only that, other resources as well. And that's how we got into medical services and the program that I'm running, which is a counseling program and a peer program. So the counseling services started because we kept realizing that our clients needed behavioral health services, and we just could not find people who are competent in working with various populations who are our vulnerable groups, like people living with HIV. I'm sorry, people in the LGBTQ plus community, people who are injecting drugs. These are not populations that people are used to working with. If somebody walks in and says, "I want to talk about depression," really being able to address all of their socioeconomic stressors as well as their, chronic health issues. We've also learned that being completely judgment-free and completely long-term outcome. For instance, in our HIV program, we never fire our clients. Sometimes clients disappear, they come back, and it does not do us any good to be invested in, okay, if only this client would go see the doctor and take this medication, it'll be all okay. Because, those of you who are in the substance use programs know that's not how it works, is that you have to always have a long-term outcome, and that is true of HIV care. So that kind of permeates everything that we do at the agency. Let's see. Another thing that's important is that the care and prevention sides of our agency are really interconnected, because when we care for people living with HIV and make sure that their viral load is controlled, a viral count is low, then they're no longer transmissible. So care is actually prevention. And just like prevention requires care, in that in order for people to not engaging in those activities that expose them to the risk of HIV, well, we need to give them counseling, we need to build them up, we need to build their self-esteem or whatever, and give them more tools and coping strategies. So prevention is care and care is prevention. They're interlinked in our minds, although they're two different departments. Like my department is kind of neither, and they're but we're really not thinking about these programs as having different goals. We're all working together with the statewide goal of basically having zero HIV transmission, and all of us are working towards that. So the Prime Peer program was funded by the state of Oregon and is funded in response to the continuing opioid use challenges in Oregon, but recognizing that, opioid use, again, cannot be separated out from other substance use. So it's much more flexible and open than just thinking about opioids. For some reason, opioids was the thing that everybody was all worried about, I guess for understandable reasons. That's where the fundings came from. But we're recognizing that we can't just do an opioid program. We need to do a, broadly speaking, substance program. So we have 2 peer support specialists in Jackson County. Sarah, I saw you earlier. I don't know if Jade is able to join yet. They're actually at the syringe exchange right now working. So Sarah, if you want to briefly introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Sarah. I'm a prime PA here in Jackson County. We are at the exchange right now, so I'm sorry I'm not able to talk more.
Yep, just wanted to be able to, people to be able to see you. We are planning to hire a lead peer support specialist who will have experience as a peer and can supervise. And also the hope is that there will be more coordination with other agencies in terms of training and care coordination and collaboration. So that's the role that the lead will take on. We did offer the position to someone, and then they took a different position. So it's still open. If you know somebody who is an experienced peer looking for a position, please have them take a look at us. So the goal, let me see, I'm just going to look ahead a bit because I think there is something that I skipped out on. So Prime Peer program is actually targeted at people who are not interested in engagement, not interested in a program, not interested in treatment. So this is an approach that we actually piloted in Douglas County, where we were doing a survey of people about their opioid use and their injected substance use and how that connects to their transmission of HIV and Hep C and their social network, and a very elaborate national study. And in our implementation of the study, we decided to hire peers to do the studies, to recruit the clients and do the survey and whatnot, and also actually provide peer services that would normally be offered in a treatment program. unconditionally. So we've been calling it kind of a pre-treatment peer program or between treatment peer program. So what if we just I mean, we know that peer services are very effective in consolidating gains and maintaining the treatment gains. But what about people who are not interested in engagement? Well, what we found is that pretty amazingly, even to us, that half of the people who were engaged with the peers actually sought one form of treatment or another in the year or two that we were engaged with them. And these are people who are using, like 90% of them were using opioids and meth daily or more, about 45% daily, 45% more than daily. And they were totally not interested in treatment. And so this is the population where we would normally be thinking that they would be resistant to change or resistant to treatment. And what it turned out to be is that a lot of them had a treatment in mind. It's just that they had a variety of barriers, such as a perception of a stigma or just practical stuff, daily stuff happening, and perceptions about themselves and so forth. And just providing peer services to them actually increase their willingness and readiness to get engaged in treatment. And it was pretty quick and pretty seamless. Even some of the clients who were just like, don't ever even talk to me about treatment or anything resembling treatment. I will not talk to you again. We were like, fine. And within months, they were enrolled in a program. And what we were able to do is, as they are, in and out of treatments, continue to hold them and support them, so that eventually they can actually find a program that works for them. Also, problem solving, the kind of the things about that Leticia mentioned earlier about fears of what the parole officer would do under these circumstances. We were able to work with them and so forth. Very common and repeating story in our program. So the Prime Peer program is building on the findings that we and the successes that we had in Douglas County, and it is a statewide program that has been being piloted in various counties since last year, and we're just bringing it to Jackson County now. So we will take referrals from anybody. Technically, on paper, we are looking for people who are at risk of overdose or at risk of some kind of a health problems because of their substance use. But we're not being picky at all. Anybody who is engaged in some kind of a substance use and you are concerned about them, they can be referred to us. And anybody can self-refer at this point as well. We're not, we don't have any screening criteria. We do ask them, so are you actually using any substance that is, I can't remember the phrase that we use. Basically, should we be concerned about your substance use? Kind of a question. And we have a questionnaire. So, sometimes people are like, oh, this is not a program for me. I think that's happened like once so far. But generally, people are like coming to us because they want support. And in the back of their mind, they want to do something about their substance use. But now is not the time. And they can get the services. We do also do a lot of outreach. We've been talking to various agencies, so familiar faces here, about how to do outreach together, so that if you reach somebody out there and they're like, hey, I'm interested in treatment, then great, you get referred to the treatment program. If they're like, no, go away, then like, well, actually we can still help you. So that's what we are interested in doing. So please connect with us if you're doing outreach in the community and you occasionally run into people who might use some services. So we do everything that the peer support programs do, just like the Pathfinder folks had described. Peer support specialists share some aspect of the life experiences of our clients. So there's this instant rapport that gets built. And it can range everything from practical help. Apparently, giving rides to people is like the thing that we do. Sometimes even grocery shopping if we have time. So anything that they need from a practical point of view. We do role modeling, obviously, just by being there, moral support. And if they're interested in service, then referrals and linkage. And this could be, not just substance programs, but it could be Hep C treatment. It could be a primary care provider, being afraid to go and see a primary care provider because of, fear of what they'll think. And sometimes they would want to go back to a treatment program, but be afraid like, oh, I graduated from this program. I don't know what they're going to think that I'm using again. Well, no, actually, it'll be fine. I'll just go with you, and you'll know that it'll be fine. And so, having that support with them helps them kind of go over that barrier. And since I have lots of time, I'm going to tell you my little analogy, which is kind of awful, but so it is about glaciers. I don't know how many of you actually heard this story. So let me know if I'm like saying this and you're like, oh, I've heard this story from Jordan before. So I do have my chat up that I can see. Okay. So if you look at glaciers, so glaciers look like, I mean, I don't know if you ever touched or hit a glacier. Those things are hard. I mean, it's a solid block of ice, right? And they look at that like they're permanent, that they're impervious to anything. And they're, you bash your head against it and it'll hurt a lot. Pretty scary things. Formidable, I think is the word that applies. But it turns out that if we raise the temperature by 1 or 2 degrees, it just melts away. Just poof, gone. Glaciers everywhere, gone. So tragic for the globe and glaciers and all that. But that is an analogy that I like to think about in terms of providing support to people who are using substances, that the resistant to treatment that we think of as formidable and impermeable, is that the right word? Impermeable, impregnable, whatever, is actually very susceptible to just disappearing very quickly with just a little bit of a nudge, 1 or 2 degrees, just making it just a little bit easier. And just a little bit easier could be complicated, like finding housing and, taking care of something or other having to do with their children or school or whatever. Or it could be something simple, just somebody being there and actually caring about them and having them feel that they're valued as an individual. So
Jordan, real quick, I just really
Sure.
like that analogy for a number of reasons,
good.
but I really like the way you said afterwards, making it easier, because historically we'd say making it more difficult until the dissonance is there and the impetus is there that they'll finally engage in some sort of life change. And no, I think the way you're phrasing it is much more apt to how we all change, right? So
Well, that's the kind of the converse of the hitting the bottom story, right? When people are really, really difficult, they finally go, okay, I got to finally do something like that. And that has to do with the difference between risk and benefit. So when their life is so horrible that the risk seems not that big a deal compared to the benefit, that is when people change. And what the peer programs do is I'm sorry, I kind of lost track of which is high and which is low. I think high is bad. Anyway, what peer programs does is it makes the risk a little bit lower, the cost of change just a little bit lower, so that they can really pursue the benefit that they can see. So people who are, in that risk benefit is pretty similar. I mean, really, the benefit has to completely outweigh the cost before people will actually make change. So people who are vacillating, sometimes it doesn't seem that way. But when we kind of lower the cost just a little bit, then the benefit always outweighs the cost. So that's how I kind of think about it. So thank you for bringing that up too. Yeah. All right. So if you know anybody, could be a client, could be a friend, who is at risk of overdose or other health problems because of their substance use, anybody you reached during outreach, anybody who comes to you or anybody who declines your service, anybody who is prematurely departing your program, is fairly common for people to come in for their intake and never come back again. Or they might be graduating from one program and waiting to get into another program, and then there's a gap. Or it could be that, they're just going back and forth between different treatments. None of them are working, but they're trying. Anyone, or just somebody who's kind of like, no, I'm just not interested. Any one of those people, please refer them to us. So somebody who is not getting a peer service from another program would be eligible for our services. Basically, if they're already enrolled in a program that provides peer services, then we defer to them. We are a grant-funded program, so we don't have to worry about billability. So if there's a program that is actually billing for the services, we would defer to them, or any program that has a kind of a wraparound service and the peer service is part of that, we would defer to them. But we can also step in if your staff are too busy, or if you have somebody who has a especially complex need, or have a lot of need that but they don't really want to engage with the other programs. refer them to us, and we will fill in the gap. That's what we're supposed to do. And pretty much we just need the name and how we can get in touch with them. You can even tell us which bridge they live under, and we'll go and find them. Peers are actually universally very good at finding people who have been long lost. Anybody that you're concerned because you haven't heard from for a long time, refer them to us, and we will try to find them, and we will get them re-engaged with your programs. Or if they're not interested in re-engaging, then we'll support them until they are. So these are the phone numbers. Should I post them in the chat or something so that it's...
Yes,
Oh, looks like
but
chat is
I
actually
don't know if I think
disabled.
the chat's disabled. So I think
Oh, okay, okay.
if you want to email them to me, Jordan, I might be able to get them out to the group
Yeah.
through Jennifer.
Well, I did email you the brochure, so
Okay.
you can go ahead and email that to everybody. We did get a request to make a referral form so that there's some ease of documentation at the referring site. So we just put it together, reviewing it, and I'll send that out too. So if you want to send that to us, that would work as well. But we're trying to make it as easy and simple and non-barrier-y as possible for you as well. So whatever makes it easier for you, more forms, less forms, we'll do it. That's kind of our attitude about the whole thing. We do need to organize a local coordinating committee, so like an advisory committee of local stakeholders. I think we have a list of names that we're collecting already that we're like, yes, you're interested. And so the idea is that you will be able to give us guidance and support and, also accountability of what we're doing and what we're not doing and so forth. And so we can also help coordinate the outreach and all the other processes that we're not doing this alone. This really needs to be a collaborative thing. And the idea is for the clients to be passed on back and forth between different programs rather than be in one program, be left out in the lurch, and then go to another program. That we really like the processes to be seamless. So whatever is going to work to make sure that there's no gap in the service. So that's actually all I had. Any questions or comments?
Well, Jordan, I've really enjoyed getting to meet you and your team, and I'm really optimistic about the work you're going to be able to do here in Jackson County. One of the big concerns with 110 is that Measure 110 is that there's a void within our community about how people are being contacted or engaged. And I'm hoping you can really help to make sure people stay connected throughout this as we look at a different approach in our state. So,
Yeah.
All right, great.
Thank you, Jordan.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.